Welcome to Pharmacy View, Technology and Pharmacy Business podcast series, where we provide regular interviews with pharmacists and key industry people within the Australian pharmacy and associated industry. In each podcast, we look to discuss aspects of pharmacy operation and how technology is improving or interacting with each guest's current role or pharmacy-related business. I'm your host, Scott Carpenter, and today's guest is sponsored by Shopfront Solutions, leading the way in digital marketing and communications, providing a cloud-based platform for pharmacies to manage all of their digital messaging and print-based collateral. For more information on the Shopfront Solutions digital platform, simply go to the website at shopfrontsolutions.com.au. I'm talking again today with Tim Shelton, pharmacist from Gippsland in East Victoria. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be here again.
Always a pleasure. Now, for anyone that hasn't listened to your first podcast, which was episode 2 last year, in what I call the year of the COVID, just a brief intro of you before we talk about your current passion and workplace.
All right, Scott. Well, hopefully 2021 won't be the year of the COVID. It's been shaping up a bit choppy so far. But my background is retail pharmacist, about 25 years as a community pharmacist down here in Victoria. Actually, I've also worked in Queensland and New South Wales. About 2 years ago, I made the switch to e-commerce and really, really enjoyed it. In fact, I've gone full-time into e-commerce nowadays and heading up an agency called Machete.Systems that takes Australian and New Zealand brands across from their current position onto Amazon and help them dominate their own niches on Amazon. So that's what we're doing now, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, I've been watching your social media with interest, and hence why I was keen to have another chat with you. I guess today, to put a bit of focus from a pharmacy and technology point of view, in the last 6 to 12 months, quite a few pharmacies made the move, either by choice or forced to an e-commerce platform. And in actual fact, one of the platforms that have been fairly active in the Australian market is a group that I'm going to chat with tomorrow morning on a separate podcast, and we'll release in a couple of weeks' time. But that's a New Zealand-based e-commerce platform, but we'll leave that one for there. I guess the question for you today is, was the forced or decision move to an e-commerce platform for pharmacies good for them, or was it, was there problems with the way they did it?
So it's been a mixed bag. A lot of pharmacies are reporting the click and collect hasn't moved the needle all that much, and perhaps that has not been the groundbreaking initiative that they thought it was. And other pharmacies are doing it really well and are doing significant business. So I think it's a mixed bag, and it depends a lot on your execution. It's one thing to put up a website or get yourself noticed on Google. It's another thing to then maximize that traffic and do something with it and turn it into commercial dollars. And I think you'll probably agree that pharmacies occupy a wide range of skill sets when it comes to turning that traffic into dollars. So hard to answer that question, Scott, but it depends on who you talk to.
No, look, I agree. And again, the pharmacists and pharmacy businesses that I've interacted with in the last couple of months and even through Christmas, to me, one of the critical measures being is that you must have someone in the pharmacy that almost has it as a first priority. I think quite a few pharmacies would be the first to jump, the minute a customer walks towards the front of the shop or the front of the dispensary, it's important that customer gets recognition. If you don't have that same mindset from the e-commerce point of view, then there's certainly some damage could be done. So that would be my main feedback from there.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, obviously we operate inside the Amazon ecosystem, but if that's representative of general e-commerce, on Amazon you have a seller feedback section where the customer is able to give feedback, much like they do on Google and much like they do on all shopping platforms nowadays. But on Amazon, they have this seller feedback section, and reading through some of the reviews that customers have posted about their online experience with some of these online pharmacies has it's left a lot to be desired, and some of these reviews are quite damning. And
Yes.
It shows what you're alluding to, in that some pharmacies, I think, see an e-commerce customer as a second-class citizen compared to someone walking in the door. And I think we need to drop that. An e-commerce customer is every bit as much a valuable customer now as someone who's inside the pharmacy, and potentially going forward even more valuable because you can reach them in so many new ways.
And not only if they've made the move to shopping on the e-commerce platform with you or a pharmacist or a business, rest assured that they're also communicating through social media as well. So
that's the big danger, is that you and Australians by and large are not what I call review crazy. So it takes a lot to move an Australian to write a review, either positive or negative.
Yes.
So if you can take these negative reviews that I'm reading on Amazon about some of these vendors, then you can only imagine there must be a great large number of them that haven't bothered to review their negative experience too.
Yeah, and again, and therefore, if it hasn't been an exceptional experience online, then you probably don't go back into that environment.
No, yeah, no
Yeah,
loyalty. Yeah, exactly.
from that perspective. And again, I'm reminded of a podcast chat I had with Aaron D'Souza from GuildLink, and one of the things he forced home was, when was the last time you Googled your business name?
Mm, mm,
And because
mm,
if you haven't done that from our last podcast, certainly
mm.
do it today. Just go onto Google, type
Yep.
in your business name, and see what people are seeing, because there might be some things there that you don't really realize. Hopefully, good, but
Yeah,
a couple that might need some strategy changes.
yeah, and that's what pharmacy owners have got to realise is reviews on social media platforms, on Amazon, on eBay, all these, and even your own websites and Google websites. These reviews are permanent and
Yes.
public, and good luck getting them changed. There is almost no mechanism for the business owner to get anything changed. And so if you fall afoul of a couple of e-commerce customers, they can trash your business overnight and
Yep.
really hand the business to your competitor around the corner. Yeah, whether it be click and collect or whether it be direct e-commerce sales, you've really got to guard that social media presence and that online reputation with quite a lot of jealousy.
Yeah, and look, a couple that I've seen myself. I'm not saying this would be a correct strategy, but maybe the only other one is to get as many positive reviews and feedbacks going up there to counter the negative ones. Well, sorry, learn from whatever's happened is wrong,
Yep.
get it corrected, but to counter, you would almost need 10 positive feedbacks to counter one negative as an idea.
As far as perception goes, definitely. And it goes back to what you originally said, Scott. If your pharmacy or your operation doesn't dedicate personnel to this emerging and exploding marketplace, you're just going to repeat the mistakes of the past. You're just going to keep getting those one-star reviews and you're going to keep getting that negative referral pathway. So it's absolutely critical that you read the reviews, treat them seriously, have a look at what the individual complaint was about, reach out to that customer, and all of these platforms provide a mechanism for you to reach out and publicly respond to the review and carefully craft that response, because you can make things worse if you aggravate and start. I've seen that, Scott. I've seen online arguments happening between pharmacies and their customers, and
Yes.
and you're just reading it with shaking your head, going, "Oh my goodness, do they realise we're all reading this?"
We're all watching this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Tim, I guess a little bit of research and some of the things that I've been following with Machete Systems over the last couple of months. There was a really good article or post a little while ago about case studies and data gathering. How does that work?
So, look, we use that inside our own business, and I encourage anyone who's in business to consider case studies and data gathering really, really carefully. And what that means is, if let's say you're a pharmacy owner and you were trying to pitch for, say, a new commercial client, whether it be a nursing home or a commercial facility for, I don't know, maybe vaccinations or something like that, you'd be well prepared if you were to get some case studies together of what you've done for other people beforehand. In other words, show them some real life examples of how you've been able to start at a certain situation, resolve the problems, and move that other business forward to a better resolution. If you can show that to them in a case study, it's going to make your pitch for new business go so much more smoothly. And of course, tied to all of that is the data gathering. It's really, really pointless working in an online world if you can't point to data about how you've made a difference. And so the two go hand in hand, but yeah, we encourage anyone who's involved in e-commerce and who's involved in online sales of any kind to collect those case studies. And it directly ties into bricks and mortar stores as well, because everyone wants new business, and best way to do it is to provide those case studies.
So, yeah, and look, I can give you a live example of that at the moment. So the IT company I did a little bit of consult work to, we're pitching for some new business. And as you'd appreciate with IT tech platforms, some of them are, on the design table, cutting edge. And the first thing that our customers have asked for is, well, can you give us a case study? Can you give us a live example? And we've actually had to change our pitch. We're now working on a case study as best as we would see it. But in some instances, we're pitching to businesses to almost come on as the partner program for this platform. So it's a completely different world, probably no different to the corporate and the high tech sales world. But if you apply that back to as you said, a pharmacy business, if there's an opportunity out there for your business, it's one thing to have a great idea. It's two things to actually find the second thing to find the customers that are, potentially could be interested in it. But it's a significant challenge to actually be able to present, I guess, to the level that they're looking at. So
it goes back to the full circle of your initial comments, and that is what's known as the Net Promoter Score, meaning that if you're managing your online presence, conducting good business online and both bricks and mortar and online, and getting a good referral pathway, then your case studies are going to be glowing, and your current customers are going to be a great source of referral for your potentially new customers. So you can't look after one area of your business while ignoring another area and hope the two don't connect. They just simply will in today's connected world.
Well, yeah. So with the case study side of things, you would encourage, I guess, communication from the pharmacy to the existing clients and say, hey, look, I've got this opportunity for a new business. Is it okay if I use you as a reference to help with that? Or does that sometimes create its own problems?
No, definitely encourage that, particularly if you target the clients you speak to. I wouldn't obviously target a client who you might be nervous about what they'd say, but no, definitely we inside our own business now, Scott, will approach a client who we know is having a particularly lovely time and ask them to be a subject of a case study so that we might present to a future client, and that's worked really well. And certainly, I think it's absolutely something that a pharmacy can do, and that's go and approach your current happy customers and get them to be social.
Yeah. So I guess in pulling together a case study, and then pharmacists have been to college for a few years, studied, I'm sure had to write a few reports and documents. Is this something they call back on, or is this something they actually go out and find someone to help them with?
Yeah, look, I don't know. It depends on the client you're trying to pitch, of course. We tend to pitch to larger brands, FMCG brands, and they do expect professionally done case studies. But if you were pitching to a nursing home, or if you were pitching to, say, a corporate client for a vaccination schedule, or some other corporate, maybe it might be a bandages and support aids kind of new client you might be trying to win, they would potentially prefer you to shoot from the heart. In other words, be honest and real and transparent and not hiding behind fancy corporate documents. So it's certainly something you could do all by yourself, but depending on the size of the client, you might want to go and get some external help. But what we do is often we'll just Google search some great case studies and just have a look at what other people are doing, and you could potentially pick up some great ideas there too.
From there, some great templates online.
Absolutely.
So that's cool.
Google answers
So
everything.
that's it. So, and I guess along with the case studies is the data gathering. So again, it mightn't be something that a pharmacist or a pharmacy team does on a regular basis, but if you're going to chase some business somewhere, it's kind of good to know what the opportunity is out there in some sense.
Well, for sure. And you need, and there's two edges to data gathering. There's the data gathering of the potential client you're trying to win with the case study, and there's the data gathering of the differences in the moving of the needle that you've been able to achieve to date with your current clients. And it just astounds me. Like you said, a lot of businesses don't even do a Google search on themselves, and they also don't measure and record some of the initiatives that they've been using. So quite a lot of businesses will run an online initiative, but then fail to record any of the data, and it just seems like a waste of time and effort to me. I think they should really change that behaviour.
Behavior. So I guess a good example of that would be loyalty platforms that have been around for a while.
Yeah, we know it. Yep.
They're technology based. They're great at capturing customer data. They can tell you all sorts of wonderful things. But I know group or brand marketing departments will use it, particularly in terms of marketing a specific product to a specific clientele. But pharmacies don't often realise that information is there within their own system, isn't it?
Oh, it's terrible. I've seen pharmacies do it really, really well. I'm particularly thinking of some North Queensland pharmacies in my previous network that were just amazing at how they connected with their loyalty program and how they kept them up to date with social and online presence. And they'd launch a new range, or they'd do publish a post or some sort of initiative that the store was running, whether it be in store or online. And they get 700 or 800 reaches with that across their database, and other pharmacies just ignore it completely, pay all this money every month to a loyalty fee and do nothing with the data. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
So I guess within a pharmacy, from your experience, is there other avenues for data that they could be looking at?
As far as data collection, well, I mean, well, we've mentioned your loyalty card. There's a host of data that comes through with every transaction, and keeping in mind those loyalty cards should work online and offline. So if they're doing click and collect sales, that data should be captured. If you're part of a marketing group, say with your Amcal or Terry White Chemmart or one of those larger groups, there's a whole bunch of data that those groups have that you should be tapping into as far as what your demographics are saying. And there's nothing stopping pharmacy owners from just asking their current customers, design a one-page survey, give away a $100 voucher to something, and get 100 respondents in store or online to just fill out the 5 questions on the survey. You'll quickly get an idea of what your customers are saying about you and who you could probably refer to for further case studies and things.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I guess from the second point of view, it's quite easy these days. Most pharmacies run some kind of a social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram,
Hmm.
and there's not that difficult to create a poll, I guess, on those mediums as well to get some feedback.
Super easy. And again, getting back to what you said before, you really need to dedicate someone to learn this stuff. 1,000
Yeah.
online courses to learn how to create a poll on Facebook or whatever social is your platform. But yeah, you're just leaving yourself. I mean, when you consider last year that online sales in Australia, grew by well over 20%, whereas bricks and mortar sales grew by 3%. It's behest upon business owners in Australia to make sure that they're putting in just as much, if not more, effort into developing their online capabilities as they do in their in-store capabilities. And yet, the reverse is probably true. They do way less.
Yeah, and look, Tim, if I can just digress a little bit for a second, I've got a Instagram page set up for this podcast, pharmacy.view. And one of the things that I've taken a lot of time to do is actually go out and follow as many pharmacy businesses in Australia as I can. And I think I'm up to about 2,500.
Wow.
But what's really intriguing is that whenever I log into that particular Instagram account, there's one particular brand in Australia that is very, very active. You often see, it's almost like the brand creates some templates for the team and then they localize it. So I'm seeing the same style of ad, but I'm seeing pictures taken with the team in that pharmacy. And if there's one, there's 20 kind of thing. So they're being very active within that pharmacy brand group to make sure that they're really harnessing in their local community activity from their Instagram accounts.
Well, it's so much easier to build a brand nowadays than what it used to be. In some respects, it's harder because there's a lot more noise out there. But now with online capabilities, with activity like what you're describing, if your competition's asleep at the wheel, you can easily go out and build your local brand for your pharmacy or your offering using far-reaching tools like Insta and like Facebook. And it's for those that know, the opportunities are huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should clarify, when we talk about pharmacy brands without naming them, there's some very active big brands out there, but this one that particular is probably not the one that everyone's now thinking that it is.
Yeah.
It wasn't the one I expected it to be the most active, and they're actually, I think, doing it quite well for their target audience.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to see some really impressive capabilities across pharmacy space, and I think we've been a little bit late to the digital party, and I think pharmacy is, still an industry that uses faxes for goodness sakes. But nonetheless, I think the pharmacy owners and the pharmacy workers and the pharmacy brands out there and the industry itself is realizing that there are customers trying to find them online, and we need to meet them there for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Tim, I think that leads nicely then into the next, I guess, discussion point, and that was that brand building and outreach strategies. What are your views on this?
Well, I mean, I can particularly talk, pardon me for going back to Amazon, but that's where my expertise is. And brand building is the same for any business owner. It's the same activity. It's about making a tribe, if you like, of people that love everything you do, are excited about what you do, and are very happy to promote you to all and sundry. So whether that happens on Amazon or happens in your local community, or whether it happens online in your local community, it's really effectively the same activity. And a lot of pharmacy owners are starting to embrace that. And I know in my local area, some of the pharmacies are, and they're doing a great job. But effectively, what needs to happen, say for instance, and just to digress, for the brands that we work for, they need to build a brand on Amazon. And so their brand is already well known outside of Amazon, but on Amazon, there's so much activity that they can undertake when it comes to supporting their Amazon presence with Facebook and Instagram, and also on their own e-commerce platforms. The four platforms all tie in very strongly, and it really works best when the brand is consistent across all four channels, or there's more than four channels, but those main four ones. And so taking that back to pharmacy now, I would say the same thing. Look at your Insta presence, look at your Google presence, look at your Facebook presence, and really try and build out your own local store brand. Now, you may be called Amcal XYZ or Terry White Chemmart XYZ, but to the consumer, that's going to end up meaning something to their local area, and as far as building that brand of that store. And I think it's something that's an opportunity that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of.
Job. And again, if I go back to this example I was referring to before, using your local team. So the faces of the people that you see when you walk into the pharmacy are now got this presence linked to the business online as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what builds the brand, is the people feel connected to the brand. In other words, it's not just some global brand where you're just a number. They feel like they're part of the tribe. And if you create that tribe atmosphere, then you're going to do really, really, really well online.
Yeah.
Just a little anecdote. A friend of mine, another Amazon expert, who built a brand of coloring pencils. Really, and he's not a coloring in sort of a guy, but he's built this.
Sure.
He's built this magnificent brand, and his engagement and his outreach is so powerful now that when he launches a new range on Amazon, and he only sells on Amazon, he'll get hundreds and hundreds of people responding and commenting and talking about how great it's going to be. And he can't fabricate this sort of stuff. You've just got to build it over time. And his brand's worth millions of dollars now, and he's built that from his garage.
Yeah, from inside. And I think we discussed this last time from an individual pharmacy point of view. It's not potentially viable for an individual pharmacy to try and promote their brand through Amazon. But if a pharmacist business wanted to specialize in a particular product or area, that's where they'd come and talk to you, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's no point getting involved in the sort of the grocery kind of offer where you just put up all your products on Amazon. Unless you've got some competitive pricing advantage, you're just going to race to the bottom with everybody else. But if you own a brand or a niche, or if you have an idea for a brand or a niche, and that's where Amazon can really be a source of really cheap traffic for you. So you can for very, very low cost, you can get your brand out onto Amazon in front of hundreds and thousands of customers. And keeping in mind, Amazon reached $1 billion in sales in Australia last year. So that's 100% growth on the year before. So it's quite significant. Yeah. That's where pharmacy owners who are sitting there listening to this could say, well, if I've got access to a niche or a brand or something that I've got tight control over, that's where Amazon could really work for them. Because it's so much easier than doing a website, where websites are great, but how do you get traffic to them? How do you get people to find you? And that's where Amazon can be really helpful
from that perspective. So again, if you're an individual pharmacy business or even a large pharmacy brand, this isn't the platform. Amazon's not the platform to be your e-commerce platform. This is, a couple of hundred entrepreneurial pharmacists out there that I've come across in my 20 plus years career that have created their own niche product or their own niche range.
Yep.
And where we might have seen it in one original pharmacy, then expanded out across a bit of a network of pharmacies. You're saying these days the place to be would be just to take that straight online.
Definitely. You're going to reach, well, for starters, it's a bit like, well, I always give the analogy that if you were to start a market stall, local farmers market, you could potentially hope to reach a couple of hundred people on a Saturday morning. But if you started an Amazon stall, as it were, you're immediately exposed to about 24 million people overnight. Okay. So you don't have to be too smart to figure out where you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck.
Yeah. So your bigger challenge on the second option might be producing enough stock to meet demand.
Absolutely, and that's a very real problem and should not be underestimated. If we're currently working with a brand in the States and they're desperately running out of stock, which is at risk of undoing some of the good work we've been doing, because when you run out of stock, of course, all the momentum stops. And so you've got to factor in those success problems as well as the other problems.
Yeah, and Tim, on that too, I remember from our last discussion that you had been working with a couple of pharmacy brand names here in Australia. Is that still happening? Are you still getting work from that perspective? Not pharmacy brands, as in pharmacy product brands.
Yes, exactly. So probably about 70% of our client base is in the pharmacy space at the moment, and that's probably a result of my personal network, just talking to people. We are actively recruiting brands outside pharmacies, so anyone's listening, please give me a call. But no.
And we'll have your link attached in the notes as well. So.
I'm just joking. I'm happy to help pharmacy brands, but currently it's a lot of our specialty, and I guess it makes sense because I understand health, I understand the rules, I understand TGA, and so we are a bit of a health specialist. But so that's to answer your question, yes.
From that perspective, yeah. And Tim, the last point we had down for today, and we probably should have linked this back to the loyalty discussion, but CRM systems, customer relation management systems, are pretty important these days, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I think when you mention CRM, you can't really sort of, again, operate in a silo. They are so crucial to tie into your social presence, so crucial to tie into your bricks and mortar presence. If you don't run a CRM currently, it's really high time you did, because when it comes to marketing digitally, if you don't have a CRM set up, you are not able to connect with your customers easily. It becomes a very manual and almost impossible task. So every business should be investing in a way to track who their customers are, what they're saying, what their contact details are, what their email addresses are, and everything. So that, when it comes time to marketing to these people, you need to be able to track outreach, going back to that word, and you also need to be able to track inReach. In other words, when a customer contacts you, don't mess up with that communication. Don't let it sit there on your Facebook page for 3 days before someone notices it. It just doesn't look,
Yeah.
it doesn't look good, and you'll end up with some bad reviews. And as I said before, they are permanent and public. So definitely invest in a CRM, learn how to use it, and again, get someone on it who is looking at it. If not, look, pharmacies are already using it to some degree. If you think about the scripts on file and the SMS programs and
Yep.
the one program, it's basically a form of CRM right there. And there's so much more you could be doing with those platforms. But we would look very bad if someone sent in a request to make up their prescriptions on a Meds Advisor or something, and then we waited 3 days before we responded to that. So, that as a hyperbole, you wouldn't do that. So don't do it anywhere else.
No. Yeah, and if I can give you, this is probably a very old example, and I might be showing my age and not necessarily yours, but I think you'll remember this. If you're a pharmacy that used to range and sell Prestige cosmetics, your cosmetics consultant had a client card file.
Absolutely, they did. Yeah, I am old enough to remember that. So thanks for dragging me into that one.
I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but they were on cards and files. I can let you know the technology's moved on a little bit. We do have databases now. So.
Yeah, but again, if you go back to that example, what was it that consultant used to do? If there was ever a new product launch, if there was ever a special for the month, each of the people on that client card would actually get. Well, I guess it was a call in those days, and then eventually it might have been an email, but it was definitely a call.
It was definitely a call, and they used to run they probably still do run the VIP nights. You'd run them in November or something, and where do you get the list from to invite people to VIP? It's from your database management, so your CRM. And I just think it's overlooked. We're all busy. We're smashing out scripts and trying to keep ahead of everything and COVID and whatnot, but we do need to invest in time to manage this relationship.
And look, I've made a note, and if there's any businesses out there, tech businesses out there that are involved in a CRM system, I'll be keen to have a chat with someone around CRMs in a future podcast episode for sure. So
absolutely, and they range in prices. You get your super expensive ones and that do amazing things, and and then you get your ones that they're $30 a month on subscription. So it's no excuse for cost. You can do it.
Can do it from that perspective. So, Tim, we're coming to the end of our time, but again, as always, I want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything else on your mind that we can cover today or chat about today?
Oh, look, no, I think it's been a great chat. As I said, I really enjoy working in the digital space. It's somewhere that's constantly changing and constantly interesting. And if any pharmacy owners are out there that, even though we probably, their ideal pathway for promoting their brand, if they just want general advice on Amazon or e-commerce, just feel free to link to me, and I'm more than happy to try and help.
Have the chat.
If I can't help, I'll refer you through to someone who I think can. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's great, Tim. And again, thanks for the chat today. I always appreciate it, and look forward to staying in touch.
It has been a pleasure, Scott, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Thanks. Thank you for listening today. Pharmacy View is a technology-focused podcast provided by Melbourne-based business Arian Technologies and Shopfront Solutions. Over the podcast series, our guests include pharmacists, retail managers, wholesalers, suppliers, and industry technology partners. If you would like further information on our podcast series or to participate in one of our episodes, feel free to send me a message or touch base through the Pharmacy View website, pharmacyview.com.au.